Jealous sister tried to frame me with a nasty rumor at school, so I went no contact with her. Then she tried to steal my fiancé at our wedding. So I exposed her in front of everyone. I, 27F, hosted my rehearsal dinner last evening, and I'm getting married tomorrow. But my mother is very upset about a certain incident that took place at dinner last night, since it ended with me kicking my sister out of the wedding after humiliating her, and I want to know if I really am the bad guy here, like my mother is saying I am. So let me give you guys some context about the relationship between my sister and I. Jennifer is 2 years younger than me, and for some reason, she has always loathed me. I'm serious, I have never really given her a concrete reason to hate me so much, but she just has it in for me. And this isn't a recent development, she has been this way right from the age of 15. Before that, we were not close, but at least she was not going against me all the time. My dad used to treat us both equally and would reprimand her whenever she would go out of her way to annoy me, but my mother had a bit of a soft spot for her. I guess it was because she was younger, but every time I would end up fighting with her, she would tell me to let it go because I was older, and I was supposed to be the more mature one. I thought my mother might have grown out of that habit, but I guess not. My sister and I kept fighting for years until I finally cut her off, in my senior year. I think she was a sophomore at the time and she was pretty popular in her year. I don't know what got into her all of a sudden, but one day, she just decided that she was going to spread a nasty rumor about me and ruin my reputation. I don't want to get into it because it happened a really long time back, but in short, she just framed me for stealing a bunch of stuff that had gone missing, and several girls from various years had reported a lot of thefts at the time, which we found out was happening because of the new janitor that the school had hired and not me, obviously. Jennifer got it into her head that she was going to spread a rumor about me being a kleptomaniac and said that in all probability, I was the one who was out of control and had started stealing from people at school. And she was pretty popular, so this spread like wildfire, and you guys know exactly how cruel kids can be. It led to a lot of bullying, name-calling, and it was a really terrible couple of weeks for me, and I had even started skipping school quite frequently because it was simply easier not to go rather than face everyone. It got to a stage where I just couldn't let it go, so I decided to find out exactly how this rumor had started, and after asking around for a couple of days, we got to the bottom of it. It came as a huge shock to me that it was my own sister who had started that rumor because it was just so cruel. I could have dealt with it at home, but I decided to publicly humiliate her in the cafeteria. I thought it was fair because she had also publicly humiliated me by spreading that rumor. It only made sense that I would confront her in public as well. So I went up to her, and asked her if she was the one who had been spreading the rumor about me, and she had the audacity to reply with "Yeah, so what?" That was all it took for me to start yelling at her, and I think I kind of exposed her. I started screaming in her face about the kind of rumors I could have started about her if I was as pathetic as her, and I wouldn't even have to cook up any lies because I could have just spoken the truth. I brought up how she had been two-timing her ex-boyfriend with his own cousin just a year ago, and all three of them had decided to keep it a secret to avoid embarrassment. And then I brought up how she also used to flirt with our housekeeper's son, who was 3 years older than her, only for him to complain about it to our parents. And worst of all, I exposed her for never showering during the holidays. I'm pretty sure a lot of people do that, but it's pretty embarrassing to have something like that announced in the cafeteria in front of a bunch of teenagers. After I had screamed out all her secrets in the cafeteria that day, she pretty much became the laughingstock of our high school, and I can't even say that I felt sorry about it. She was the one who started the rumor about me first, and I just put an end to it. When we came back home, we had a huge fight and both of us said pretty horrible things to each other. It was about to get physical as well, but, thankfully, our parents were there to intervene at the right time. I think that was the last day that we spoke to each other because, after that, we just started to ignore each other's existence in spite of living in the same house. I did not acknowledge her, and she treated me the same way, and I was pretty glad to be rid of her when I finally moved away for college after a couple of months. Even when I would come back from college, I would not speak to her. And just like that, 10 years have passed since we last spoke. A lot of things have changed, both of us have our own lives, and after both of us had graduated from college, we didn't want to see each other anymore, so we would make sure that we visited our parents separately and wouldn't run into each other. Even during the holidays, I would only go see my family after she was gone. It was an unspoken agreement between my parents, Jennifer, and I, and we had honored that for a really long time. But then, 2 years ago, my dad passed away from an aneurysm in the middle of the night. We were all together for his funeral, and after that, Jennifer and I decided to put our differences aside so we could be there for our mother. For the past 2 years, at least on the holidays, we have gone home together, and it's been really awkward with just the three of us, but my mother tries to work with it. I was just thankful that I had my fiancé, and my boyfriend, Jacob, as a part of the family dinners for the holidays so we could cut the tension. After my dad passed away, I would say that Jennifer and I had tried to hate each other so much, or at least pretend that we were getting along for the sake of our mother. So a couple of months back, when I got engaged, my mother talked me into inviting Jennifer to the wedding as well. Initially, I was quite against the idea, but Jacob told me that it might be nice to have her because it has been 10 years since we had our last fight, and since we are embarking on a new journey together, it might be better to bury the hatchet. As corny and sappy as it sounds, it kind of worked, and while we were creating the guest list, I decided to add my sister to it. I did not invite her to any other events, not the engagement party or the bridal shower, because that was only for close friends and family, but I decided that it would be nice to invite her to the wedding. When she received her invitation, she was nice enough to thank me for it and even said that she hadn't been expecting one, but she was grateful that I was willing to put everything in the past. Because of her behavior, I had no reason to suspect that she might be up to something. And honestly, 10 years have passed since that incident from high school, so I think everyone should be over it by now. Currently, all my guests and of course my fiancé and I are in the hotel that we had selected as our venue. It's a little distance away from the city and we have been here for 2 days now. The day before yesterday, most of our guests had arrived by the evening and we had a welcome party for everyone who had come from out of town. At the welcome party, I noticed that Jennifer had been quite social with everyone and she seemed to be having a good time. She even took a bunch of photos with me, so up until that point, I was feeling good about my decision to invite her. But that changed by the next morning because, in the middle of the night, my fiancé came to my room and showed me a letter that Jennifer had sent to his room. My fiancé and I are staying in separate rooms because my mother and his parents are all kind of superstitious and think it's bad luck for the couple to be staying in the same room before the wedding. In fact, his room is on another floor altogether. And it was around 1 in the morning when he showed up in my room, so it was pretty late. The welcome party had gone on until midnight, but after that, everyone went back to their own rooms. I was also just about to go to bed when Jacob started knocking at my door, and when I let him in, he handed me the letter. I could easily recognize Jennifer's handwriting. It's pretty unique and I instantly knew something had gone wrong. Jacob told me that he had been getting ready for bed when, about 15 minutes ago, a member of the hotel staff brought this letter to him. He told her that the lady from room 306 had sent him and that was Jennifer's room number. So even though she hadn't signed her name, we all knew it was her. I guess she hadn't been counting on Jacob and I having a good and healthy relationship, which is pretty stupid on her part since we are literally about to get married, since she had literally started the letter by saying that she wanted this to remain a secret between her and Jacob. Now coming to the contents of the letter, it was pretty shocking, even by her standards. I knew that she had hated me in the past, but I thought that she would be over it by now since her behavior had been pretty normal. But in the letter, she had gone into great detail about the kind of animosity between us in the past. The only thing that she had changed was that instead of being truthful, she had switched our rules. She had made it sound like I was the one who had started hating her for no reason and went out of my way to bully her. She even talked about the incident from high school and said that I was the one who had been spreading nasty rumors about her, and just because she had called me out on it in public, I had felt humiliated and stopped speaking to her. But she did not stop there. She came up with a bunch of more lies and said that even after I had stopped speaking to her, I did not let her live in peace, and every time that I would come back home from college, I would hit on her boyfriend, and eventually, that 2 of them ended up breaking up because of me. She claimed that I had traumatized her and been nothing short of a nightmare to live and grow up with. And the only reason she had decided to attend this wedding was because she knew that Jacob was a good man and that he deserved better. So she felt like she couldn't let him ruin his life by getting married to me, because even though I was being nice right now, I was going to show my true colors pretty soon, and she did not want that for him. I would still be less surprised by this letter if she hadn't mentioned that she would be willing to elope with Jacob if he wanted to, because in spite of the fact that she had spent limited time with him, she had started to fall for him, and she felt like the only reason the universe had brought the both of us together again was so that she could find Jacob. She ended the letter by telling him that she would be waiting for him after the rehearsal dinner in the parking lot since she didn't want to be caught by any of the guests, and they could discuss this there. So, it was a pretty shocking letter, and Jacob told me that he had come to me as soon as he had finished reading it. He literally looked sick to his stomach, and it was kind of ironic, but I actually had to comfort him. He started apologizing to me profusely because he was kind of the one who had talked me into inviting her and letting bygones be bygones. And I don't blame him for that. Let me just make that clear, since I think any normal person in their right mind would want us to clear the air because we are adults now and I'm almost 30. I don't want to keep holding on to high school drama, but it's evident that Jennifer does. Jacob was shocked, but I was infuriated because she had pretended like everything was fine and tried to take advantage of the fact that I had started to trust her after so long again. But I guess, even after a snake has shed its skin, it's still a disgusting snake, and that's the case with Jennifer. So I decided that was going to repeat itself, and once again, she was going to be humiliated and I was going to make sure of it. I told Jacob about my plan and he was on board with it. And if I'm actually being honest, he didn't even care because he was simply just disgusted and creeped out by the psychotic way my sister was behaving. It was really disappointing because Jacob had been my boyfriend for the past 4 years and everybody knew how much I loved him, so I guess this was her way of getting back at me or something. Anyway, the plan that Jacob and I had come up with was relatively simple, and I guess some people might have already guessed what we did. After spending around half an hour with me in my room, Jacob went back to his room and made a call to Jennifer's room. He told her that he would be willing to discuss this after the rehearsal dinner in the parking lot as she had said. He told her that at one point, he would ask for whiskey on ice, and that would be the signal for her to excuse herself, and he would meet her 10 minutes later. Then, last night, after everyone had been served dessert and stuff, my fiancé asked for a whiskey on ice, and immediately, Jennifer excused herself to use the ladies' room. So we knew that our plan was working, but instead of heading out, my fiancé and I stood up and made an announcement about the letter and its contents. Needless to say, everyone was shocked, but we did not have time for that, and we told them that currently, Jennifer was waiting for Jacob in the parking lot, and if anybody still had any doubts, they could come with us and see it for themselves. I'm pretty sure that nobody had any doubts, but they still followed us to the parking lot, and when we finally found Jennifer, she was stunned for a couple of seconds, like a deer caught in headlights. Once she came to her senses, she made a run for it. But it was pointless, everyone already knew the truth, and we had accomplished what we had set out to do. It was pretty chaotic after that because nobody knew what to do, so I sent everyone back to their rooms except for my mother and my in-laws. With them, I went to the room that Jennifer was staying in. I wasn't sure if she would be in there, but she was, thankfully. We had to knock on the door several times before she finally opened it, and her face was all red and splotchy, and when she saw me standing outside, she tried to attack me. But Jacob pushed her back, and I told her that I wanted her out immediately. She didn't even reply, she just went back inside, and we saw that she had already started packing, so I didn't even need to tell her to leave. It was my mother who took it the hardest. She started having a breakdown in Jennifer's room and started asking her why she would do such a thing, since we were all convinced that she didn't even like Jacob. She just wanted to stir up drama against me. Jennifer did not reply, she just quietly packed her things as quickly as she could and then left. After she was gone, there was not much to discuss, so my in-laws went to bed, but my mother stopped Jacob and me before we could leave. She told us that she could understand that we were upset because of what Jennifer had tried to do, but even then, it could simply not justify the way we acted. I was honestly confused because, in my opinion, I hadn't done anything that bad. Definitely not as bad compared to what Jennifer had been trying to do, so I had to ask my mother to explain, and she said that if I had a problem with what Jennifer had said in her letter, I should have dealt with it like an adult instead of dealing with it like I did as a teenager and creating a spectacle out of it. I should have confronted her in person and kicked her out without humiliating her like I did. When my mother said that, I kind of flared up at her and I told her that I should have seen this coming because she always had been on Jennifer's side, and even now, all she cared about was how Jennifer was feeling and the fact that her darling daughter had been humiliated, even though it was her own fault. But my mom argued with me and said that she was ready to admit that what Jennifer had done was a horrible thing to do and that she shouldn't have pushed me to invite her, but it still did not mean that I had the license to do whatever I wanted to because I was dragging my family's name through the mud. She said that it was really juvenile of me to involve all the guests and said that even they might have found it really awkward, so I had kind of ruined my own wedding by doing this as well, since everyone would only be talking about this. At the time, however, I did not care about that. I only wanted to get back at Jennifer, and I did that. So I told my mother that I did not care what she thought and Jacob and I went back to our room. Today, we had a gap between our rehearsal dinner and our wedding day and everyone was free to do whatever they wanted. So I spoke to my maid of honor and a couple of the bridesmaids and asked them if everyone was talking about what had happened the previous night, and they said that people definitely were shocked and had been discussing it, but they were going to forget it in time for the wedding. I asked them for their honest opinion if I had actually taken things too far, and most of them said that it was my choice. I wanted to deal with it, and there was no such thing as taking it too far, especially when we were dealing with someone like my sister. My mother, however, has not spoken to me since last night, and I feel weirdly guilty about what I did. Maybe she was right, maybe I shouldn't have taken matters into my own hands and humiliated her once again. Now that I think of it, it was kind of a juvenile plan, but I just wanted her to feel as bad as I had felt. Also, it's not my fault she was stupid enough to write that letter to my fiancé in the first place. Anyway, coming to my question, Ida for humiliating my sister and kicking her out of my wedding after she tried to sabotage my relationship with my fiancé? Update 1. Hey, guys. So I'm getting married the next morning and I'm kind of risking getting dark circles by staying up so late at night, but I just had to get this off my chest. I had a conversation with Jacob about whatever was going on with my mother in the evening, and there were also a bunch of comments that said that what I had done was actually kind of a bit too much. A lot of people had agreed that after what Jennifer had done, I had earned the right to go scorched earth on her, but it was not like I couldn't have dealt with it in a better way. So in a way, my mother had been right about what she had said. I probably hadn't dealt with it in the best way possible, but that was my choice. Maybe I don't have to be politically correct, but you are at all times. Sometimes I can just do whatever I want without thinking of the consequences. But that doesn't mean I don't have to face the consequences, and here, in this case, the consequences meant that I would have to sort things out with my mother because she was upset. So a couple of hours ago, Jacob and I went to her room and she looked a bit upset, but as soon as she saw us, she pulled us both in a hug and said that she had actually been thinking about coming to us herself. Before we could say anything, she pulled us inside her room, sat down, and said that she wanted to apologize for her behavior the previous night. She acknowledged the fact that she had only been thinking about things from her perspective, without even bothering to think how I might have felt. Now that she had had a day to think about it, she realized that the contents of the letter were outrageous, and it was not acceptable. So maybe she wouldn't have to deal with the situation the way that I did, but it's my life, I'm free to do whatever I want. And if I thought that humiliating Jennifer was going to make me feel like I had been vindicated, it was not her place to tell me what to do. I was glad that she had come to this conclusion on her own, but I also told her that she had a point and I apologized for lashing out at her as well. I thought that would be it, but she also said that she was sorry for always siding with Jennifer when we were younger because that was why I was still under the impression that she was going to support her, no matter what. But she told me that she had cut Jennifer off shortly after she had left and was planning on not speaking to her until she had apologized to both of us, sincerely. And then, Jacob, my mother, and I had a short discussion about how excited we were for the next morning before we went back to our rooms. So I'm pretty glad that I decided to take the advice here and talk to my mother. It definitely paid off and now, I'm gonna get married as a happy woman. Update 2, hi, so I got married to Jacob last week and I really thought that the whole thing with my sister was over. I mean, she had already been humiliated and kicked out of the wedding, so there was literally no reason for her to come back and try to start drama with me again. But she just keeps coming back for seconds, I don't understand why. This time, she made a Facebook post saying that the only reason she had suggested that Jacob make a run for it with her was because I was a terrible human being and she wanted to give him a chance at a better life, and she thought that she was doing the right thing. And she also mentioned that apparently, Jacob had been dropping a lot of hints every time they met. That's obviously a very blatant lie. I trust Jacob more than anyone and I know for a fact that he would never do anything to break that trust. And I think that he has proven his loyalty to me more than once, so I don't understand why she is still trying to make me question it. When she put up that post, I couldn't see it because I had blocked her everywhere, so a couple of relatives had to send it to me. But they knew the truth as well since I had read that letter and everyone had seen that it was actually her handwriting. So they jumped to my defense as soon as she made that post, and everyone just started demolishing her in the comments and people just kept sending me screenshots of her getting completely demolished in the comment section. I don't even have to do anything, I just have to sit back and watch the drama unfold. I guess she couldn't keep fighting with everyone anymore, so she took it down about half an hour back. Jacob and I couldn't stop laughing after we realized that she had to take it down because nobody was willing to buy her crap anymore. It's just sad because if she apologizes to us, she will be able to get back her relationship with our mother, the only person who will have her. Instead, she is so stubborn that she wants to continue ruining her relationship with everyone in the family, and not just her relationships, she's also ruining her own reputation by pulling off these stupid stunts because I'm pretty sure that her coworkers and her friends can also see these posts since it was on the public setting. She just can't seem to stop making a fool out of herself, and at this point, I don't even feel mad at her. I just feel pity for her because I still don't know what exactly happened to turn her into someone like this, but whatever it is, I just hope she gets over it soon because this kind of obsession with someone else is just not healthy. Update 3, so after my last update, a lot of people in the comments had suggested talking to my mother, so we could actually find out what exactly had happened that made my sister into the kind of person that she is. And to be honest, even I was pretty curious to know because like I said, she did not have any problems with me until she was around 15. So something must have gone wrong at that point for her to start resenting me so intensely. I called my mother up a couple of hours ago to ask about it and she told me that she doesn't really have a very clear memory of it, but a couple of years back, she actually had a discussion like this with Jennifer. And Jennifer had mentioned something about how she was sick of constantly being compared to me. The only problem was that I honestly couldn't think of anyone in our family who compared her to me. We are not people who would do that. And besides, we were pretty much equal at most things. It was not like one of us was prettier or more attractive than the other, and even when it came to our education, we were on equal footing. But my mom told me that apparently, when Jennifer was 15, she had been dating a guy from my year, but he had forced her to keep it a secret. And he was the one who constantly kept comparing her to me, presumably because he had a thing for me, but I remember having rejected him several times. I guess that led to some internal issues that I was never able to find out about since Jennifer never told me about the relationship that she had with that guy. And then that incident took place in high school, where I completely humiliated her, so that definitely didn't make things any better, and apparently, people had made fun of her for several months afterward, and even the guy she was dating had dumped her after the incident, but I didn't even know about that since I had already graduated. All these things that added up, and she had started resenting me more than ever. I just wish she had spoken to me about the boy who kept comparing her to me. Maybe we would have been able to sort things out back then, but now, it's too late. Maybe someday, we will be able to clear the air, but right now, all I can do is just feel bad for her. But, thankfully, Jacob and I are leaving for our honeymoon in a couple of days, so maybe that will help distract me.